You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. In the late 6th century BC, Athens stood at a crossroads. For decades, it had been plagued by political strife, the lingering aftershocks of tyranny, and the constant tug-of-war between aristocratic clans, ambitious strongmen, and the growing demands of an increasingly self-aware citizen body. Into this turbulent environment stepped Cleisthenes, a man whose vision and reforms would fundamentally reshape the political landscape of Athens and lay the groundwork for what would later be hailed as democracy. His story is one of intrigue, calculated innovation, and a deep understanding of how to reorganize power in a way that broke the dominance of old aristocratic structures. To understand Cleisthenes' transformation of Athens, we must first consider the political background he inherited. In the preceding generation, Athens had been ruled by Pisistratus and his sons in a form of benevolent tyranny. Though the word tyrant today carries connotations of brutality and oppression, in ancient Greece it meant something more nuanced, a ruler who seized power outside the traditional aristocratic order, often with popular support. Pisistratus, who came to power in the mid-6th century BC, maintained much of the existing framework of governance while building his own authority through patronage, public works, and religious festivals. His reign brought stability and economic growth, but it also entrenched the influence of his family. After his death, his sons Hippias and Hipparchus continued the tyranny, but cracks soon appeared. In 514 BC, Hipparchus was assassinated in an act of political vengeance by Harmodius and Aristogeiton, figures later celebrated as tyrant slayers. The aftermath saw Hippias grow increasingly paranoid and oppressive, ultimately leading to his ousting in 510 BC with Spartan assistance. With the tyranny gone, Athens was left with a vacuum of authority, and powerful aristocratic clans scrambled to fill it. The two main rivals were Cleisthenes of the Alcmaeonid family and Isagoras, an aristocrat who leaned on Spartan backing. Initially, Isagoras gained the upper hand, becoming Archon, but Cleisthenes sought to outmaneuver him, not by force alone, but by appealing directly to the common citizens of Athens. This was a radical move. For power in Athens had long been concentrated among the Eupatridae, the well-born, whose political influence was rooted in their control of key offices and their dominance in the tribal system that organized Athenian society. That tribal system, crucial to the political order before Cleisthenes, was based on 4 traditional tribes, each linked to certain aristocratic families and religious cults. Membership in a tribe determined military obligations, political representation, and social identity. By controlling the tribes, aristocratic families could maintain their grip on power. Cleisthenes understood that to break their dominance, he needed to break the system itself. His most famous reform was the reorganization of Athenian society into 10 new tribes. But this was no mere reshuffling, it was a deliberate dismantling of the old order. Rather than being based on kinship and aristocratic lineage, these tribes were formed from demes, local units akin to townships. Each tribe included demes from 3 distinct regions: the city, Asti, the coast, Paralia, and the inland rural areas, Mesogeia. By blending citizens from different regions into each tribe, Cleisthenes ensured that no single local aristocracy could dominate an entire tribe's political representation. The demes themselves were more than just voting districts. They became the fundamental building blocks of Athenian political life. Each deme kept its own citizen registry, which replaced the old reliance on aristocratic patronage for recognition as a legitimate citizen. This seemingly administrative change was revolutionary, as it made citizenship a matter of enrollment in a civic institution rather than a hereditary privilege controlled by the elite. Alongside the new tribal system, Cleisthenes restructured the boule, or council, which had previously been composed of 400 members drawn from the 4 tribes. He expanded it to 500 members, with each of the 10 new tribes supplying 50 counselors chosen by lot. This council was central to the day-to-day functioning of Athenian government. It set the agenda for the assembly, oversaw public officials, and managed the city's finances and foreign affairs. By increasing the number of participants and distributing seats evenly among the tribes, Cleisthenes created a broader base of political engagement, ensuring that more citizens had a direct role in governance. The lot system itself was a key feature of Athenian democracy. By using random selection for many offices, Cleisthenes reduced the influence of wealth and social connections, making political service more accessible to ordinary citizens. Another important innovation attributed to Cleisthenes was the practice of ostracism, though its formal introduction may have come a few years after his reforms. Ostracism allowed the assembly to vote once a year on whether to exile a citizen for 10 years without confiscating his property. This measure was intended as a safeguard against the return of tyranny or the excessive concentration of power in one individual's hands. Cleisthenes' reforms were not purely political engineering. They were also acts of survival in a fiercely competitive political environment. When Isagoras, backed by King Cleomenes I of Sparta, attempted to expel Cleisthenes and dissolve the council, the Athenian people rose in revolt, besieging Isagoras and his Spartan allies on the Acropolis. This uprising underscored the success of Cleisthenes' strategy. By empowering the citizen body, he had created a political force capable of defending its own interests against both internal and external threats. In the years that followed, the restructured Athenian system fostered an unprecedented level of civic participation. The assembly, open to all male citizens, became the primary venue for debating and deciding on laws, war, foreign alliances, and public policy. The new tribes also formed the basis of the reformed army, with each tribe providing a regiment and its own commander. This integration of military and political structures further solidified the unity of the citizen body and reinforced the link between service to the state and participation in its governance. The long-term impact of Cleisthenes' reforms cannot be overstated. While they did not create democracy in the fully developed sense it would reach in the 5th century BC, they laid the institutional and cultural foundations upon which later leaders like Pericles would build. By breaking the power of the aristocratic families, redistributing political representation, and embedding the principle of equality among citizens, Cleisthenes initiated a transformation that made Athens unique among Greek city-states. Yet it is important to remember that Athenian democracy, even in its most radical form, was far from universal. Women, slaves, and resident foreigners, metics, were excluded from political participation. Nevertheless, within the context of the ancient world, it represented a dramatic departure from oligarchic norms and an experiment in governance whose influence would echo through history. In the centuries after Cleisthenes, Athenians would look back on his reforms as the moment their city began its journey toward becoming a democratic powerhouse. His name was celebrated not as a conqueror or a king, but as a lawgiver and reformer. The architect of a system in which the people themselves became the guardians of their own freedom. That his reforms survived the political upheavals of the 5th and 4th centuries BC and continued to inspire later generations is a testament to their enduring strength and adaptability. Even after Athens' political independence was lost to Macedonian and later Roman rule, the idea of democracy born from Cleisthenes' vision remained a touchstone of civic identity. In the modern world, where democracy is often taken for granted or treated as a self-evident ideal, the story of Cleisthenes serves as a reminder that such systems are the product of deliberate design and courageous action. They arise from moments of crisis when bold individuals seize the opportunity to reshape society, not for the benefit of the few, but for the empowerment of the many. And in the winter of 508-507 BC, Cleisthenes was that bold individual, setting Athens on a path that would change the history of governance forever.